So this is a series called Road to B2, and no, I'm not starting from zero. I can read all right, I can listen all right, and I can enjoy the language, but I can't really speak very well, and that's the bottleneck for me. So this is my real journey from understanding Spanish to actually using it in real time. So no, it's not highlight reels, no fake fluency. It's just a process. So A2 actually isn't a joke. It's the most underrated stage in language learning. And I get why if you watch most creators online, they just breeze right past it. They're already advanced, or at least they want you to think that they are. So the beginner stuff is boring, right? But here's the truth. A2 is where everything starts to click. And if you skip it or try to speed through, you're just setting yourself up for a frustrating time later. So I remember when I hit A2 in Spanish, it wasn't very glamorous. There was no fireworks, no sudden burst of fluency, but it was the first time that I can actually sit down and enjoy show, read a short article, or watch a YouTube video without feeling lost. The pattern started to repeat. The words and phrases I've seen 100 times finally stuck. And maybe most importantly, learning stopped feeling like an endless chore. It started feeling sustainable, even fun. So that's the real magic of A2. It's the bridge between I don't get any of this and whoa, I'm starting to understand this now. But most people, and myself included, the first few times I try to treat A2 as just like another box to check. You get impatient. You think I should be at like B1, B2, having fun now, but why am I still stuck here? And that's where the impatience is what kills momentum. You start to chase advanced content before you're ready, and everything feels impossible again. So the thing is, A2 isn't just a phase, it's leverage. Everything you do here makes the next stages possible. So here's what I wish someone had told me. A2 is where content becomes enjoyable. It's where you start to recognize the patterns. Where you can actually use the language for things you like. Media, stories, simple conversations. And that's really huge. Like when you're learning, it feels like play, not punishment. And that's when you keep going. So if you want to make real progress, focus on maximizing your time here at A2. You don't rush. You watch shows. You listen to slow podcasts. You reread the same articles or watch the same videos. Now you understand a lot more without translating. So you got to celebrate when you pick up like a little joke or some slang or something like that. Because this is the foundation where you'll build everything else on. This is something I've been systematizing actually inside of the language operating system. It's about separating comprehension progress from speaking progress, and that changes how patient you stay with yourself. And I break this down more in the A2 to B1 bridge module of the Language OS community. And you might be thinking, but isn't A2 just beginner stuff? Shouldn't I be pushing myself to advanced material? And the answer is no. No. You can enjoy content in A2. You'll naturally move up when you're ready. And you'll actually remember what you learn. So skipping ahead just leads to burnout. So here's the line that I want you to remember. A2 isn't a hurdle. It's where leverage is built. It's the turning point where language starts to become yours. So, speaking needs structure, not confidence. One of the biggest myths in language learning is that you need to feel confident before you start speaking. We're told to just be brave. Put yourself out there, fake it till you make it. But if you've ever tried to speak in a new language, you know exactly how paralyzing that advice can be. So you open your mouth and nothing comes out. Or maybe you try and you fumble over a few words, then you retreat right back into silence. Confidence isn't something you can just summon on command. It's the result of something else called structure. And I learned this lesson in a way that surprised me, actually. I've been dreading my speaking lessons for weeks, and I could understand a lot. But as soon as it was my turn to talk, my mind, it just went blank, and I got stuck searching for the right words, worrying about grammar. And the whole thing just turned into a performance. That changed the day my coach gave me a simple framework instead of asking me to come up with sentences from scratch. He showed me a handful of sentences, like templates and mix and match structures that I could use to build almost anything that I wanted to say. And suddenly it felt like a game. There was no pressure to be perfect, no expectation to deliver a flawless monologue. I could pick up a template, swap it in for a few words I knew, and boom, I was speaking. And the more I used the framework, the easier it got. The blank page problem disappeared, and I didn't have to worry about confidence because the structure did the heavy lifting. My job was just to fill in the blanks, and this is why most people freeze up when it's time to speak. We're taught that fluency means saying whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's just not how language learning works, especially in the beginning. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. You need a toolkit of phrases and sentences, and you need structure. Speaking isn't about showing off how much you know. It's about using what you know in a way that feels safe and repeatable. So you might be thinking, but I'm too anxious to speak. What if I mess up? So here's the truth. Everyone messes up. That's part of the process. The structure isn't there to make you perfect. It's there to give you a starting point. Once you have that, the anxiety takes a back seat. You stop worrying about what you don't know, and you start focusing on what you can say. And that's where confidence actually comes from doing, not from waiting to feel ready. So if you want to speak more, stop chasing confidence, chase structure. Build a few simple frameworks you can rely on, and let the practice do the rest. The confidence will follow. So it's funny how a short break can make you doubt everything you've built. I've been making steady progress with my Spanish, showing up to lessons, working through my routines, feeling the language settle in, but then life happened. Travel, work, it's like a cold that knocked me out for a week. Suddenly I hadn't been able to speak a word of Spanish in days. And by the time my next lesson rolled around, I was kind of nervous in a way that I hadn't felt for months. It was like staring down a blank page, knowing that every stumble would just fall into silence. I remember sitting at my desk just before the call, sitting right here actually, staring at my notes, trying to just cram as much into my head as possible. What if it's all gone, I thought. What if I open my mouth and nothing comes out? The anxiety felt familiar. A throwback to my earliest days with the language, when every sentence was a battle. I almost canceled the lesson, telling myself, I'll pick things up back when I felt a little bit more ready. But I didn't cancel. I showed up awkward, rusty, and waited for, my familiar greeting from my coach. The first couple minutes, they were rough. I stumbled through the opening questions, searching for words that felt out of reach. My mouth felt heavy, my mind was cloudy. But then, almost without warning, like something shifted, a phrase, it clicked into place. A sentence rolled out just a little smoother, and suddenly, the rhythm was back. I didn't have to force it. My brain knew what to do, even if I was a little slow at first. That's the moment where it hit me. Wait, the rhythm is already back? The break hadn't erased everything? The base that I built all those hours of listening, reading, practicing was still there, carrying me through the awkward start. It was like a muscle memory, but for language. Once I got going, the conversation flowed. Understanding was there. Senses lined up. Nothing had been lost. The realization changed everything for me. I used to think the real danger in language learning was forgetting that if I took a break, I'd slide all the way back to the start, but that's just not true. At least if you build a real base, the danger isn't forgetting. It's giving up. It's giving up during the awkward, lonely jump from understanding to speaking. That's where most people quit. Not because they can't learn, but because speaking feels too steep, too exposed. Reading and listening, they're private, they're safe. But speaking is public, it's messy. It feels like everyone's watching, even if it's just you and your coach. But here's what I've learned, is that if you can get through that first awkward minute, the base that you've built will show up for you. It won't be perfect, it won't be pretty, but it will be there. And every time you show up and make that base a little bit stronger, that's what I think the biggest bottleneck to reaching B2 isn't comprehension. It's the fear, the discomfort of speaking. That jump feels a little bit too big, but it's not. It just feels that way because it's new. Because no one talks about it. No one talks about how normal the struggle is. That's what this journey is about for me, and showing up, showing the real process, not the highlight reel. No fake fluency, no skipping the messy bits. So if you want to take a step that actually matters, here's what I want you to do. Later today, just say one sentence out loud in your target language. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be complete. It doesn't. Just say something. Anything, and then stop. That's it. You're done for the day. This isn't about practicing until you're exhausted. It's about proving to yourself that the world doesn't end when you speak. You survive it. The more you do this, the less scary it gets. You start to rewire your brain, not just for language, but for action. You might be shocked at how quickly the rhythm returns, even after a break. That's your base at work. That's what makes real progress possible. So now I don't know exactly where this ends yet, but what I do know is that learning stops being frustrating once it becomes part of who you are, not something that you're forcing. This is just the next phase of that process. By the way, no pressure, but there's a link underneath this video where you can have a look at my paid programs. When you trust me enough and feel like my free content has changed your life, you can have a look at that.